Dear members, yesterday the committee adopted decision 13-10B41 for the joint inscription of traditional Korean wrestling Cesirum on the representative list. Allow me once again to thank you all for the spirit of cooperation that made this historic inscription possible. It is now time for us to resume our examination of item 10, report of the evaluation body on its work in 2018, which will retain our attention for some time. Before starting, allow me to also take this opportunity to mention the generous contribution of Sultan bin Abdulaziz Al Saud Foundation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in support of Arabic interpretation during the examination of nominations, proposals, and requests until Friday morning. I now invite the chairperson of the evaluation body, Mr. John Moge Omare, representing Kenya, its vice chairperson, Evin Falk, representing the Norwegian Crafts Institute, and its rapporteur, Eva Kuminikova, representing Czech Ethnological Society, to join us at the podium. I wish to remind you that the committee established the evaluation body at its 12th session in Jeju, Republic of Korea, in order to evaluate the nomination to the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding, the nominations of the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity, the proposal to the register of good safeguarding practices, and the request for international assistance greater than 100,000 USD. Let me explain how we will deal with items on the agenda concerning the report of the evaluation body that also includes 4 sub-items. We will begin with item 10, the overall report of the evaluation body on its work, as follows. Ms. Kumikova will present an oral report on a number of cross-cutting and specific issues raised during the body's work on 4 mechanisms, namely the urgent safeguarding list, the representative list, the register of good safeguarding practices, and international assistance. Following the oral report, I will open the floor for specific questions that committee members may wish to address to the evaluation body. I would ask you at that stage to restrict your intervention to questions to the evaluation body concerning issues raised in its reports. Our general debate on this item will take place after we have evaluated all individual files, at which point we will move to the adoption of the overall decision 13-10. Do you have any comment or question on the order of examination of nomination in the debate? If you have no question on the order of the examination of nominations and the debate, let me mention that the committee is now asked to examine nominations to the urgent safeguarding list, item 10A, nomination to the representative list, item 10B, proposal to the register of good safeguarding practices, item 10C, and request for international assistance greater than 100,000 US dollars, item 10D. All nominations, requests, and proposals will be the subject of a brief presentation by the chairperson of the evaluation body, who will give us a succinct explanation justifying the draft decision of the body, along with a display of photographic materials on the screens. Concerning nominations that have been recommended for referral, allow me to recall that in conformity with Decision 9-13C in 2014, the evaluation body recommended to refer a file only in the case of information lacking in a nomination whether it be a technical or substantial nature. Depending on its own priorities, the submitting state may wish to resubmit the referred file during the immediate following cycle or during another future cycle. This is the reason why each decision for referral states that submitting states are invited to resubmit the nomination to the committee for examination during a following cycle. In any case, files referred and later resubmitted are considered as new nominations and therefore are subject to the overall sealing of files and the priority system described under paragraph 34 of the operational directives. Concerning the debate of the committee on the files, I wish to underline that a heavy task is ahead of us, with 46 files remaining to be examined over the course of 15 hours. Due to this tight schedule and in order to allow sufficient time for the committee to discuss specific files, the Bureau agreed during the meeting on 2nd October to adopt the same procedure as in previous years and to invite committee members wishing to discuss or amend specific draft decision on nomination to inform the Secretariat by today, 9 a.m. In this regard, a message was sent by the Secretariat to all committee members on 15th November to inform them of this working method. This is merely a matter of organization. I wish to reassure members of the committee that this procedure does not prevent any committee member from taking the floor on any decision if it so wishes during the current item. The Secretariat informed me that it received requests for debate by committee members concerning 2 nominations to the urgent safeguarding list and 6 nominations to the representative list. It also informed me that 2 files have been withdrawn by the committee, by the submitting state concerned. Allow me now to explain the working method. I wish to apply for the adoption of draft decision in principle. We will adopt draft decision for which amendments were submitted paragraph by paragraph. For other decisions, we could expect to adopt them as a whole. In either case, the submitting state will have 2 minutes for comments after adoption as customary. I hope that we can, in this way, save time and conduct our discussion in an optimal manner. Another aspect that I want to clarify is how I intend to proceed with amendments to the draft decisions on nominations. In particular, in light of decision 11-8, the committee took in 2016 regarding the clarification on the decision-making process concerning inscription, selection, or approval of nomination, proposals and requests, as well as the discussions of the informal ad hoc working group held in the past 2 years. As members of the committee are well aware, our decision-making process has been the subject of numerous decisions during the meetings of the informal ad hoc working group since its creation in 2016. While the work of the informal ad hoc working group is ongoing, and its report will in fact be discussed under item 16 of our agenda, it is important for me to acknowledge its debates. That being said, item 16 will be the opportunity for us to fully debate around these ideas. Taking into consideration the outcomes of these meetings as presented in the report of the co-chairs of the open-ended informal ad hoc working group of the committee, Annex document ITH 18/13-16, I would like to apply the following working method as a way forward for the present examination of nominations, requests, and proposals under item 10. In accordance with paragraph 14 of the Rules of Procedure of the committee, my duty as chairperson is the smooth conduct of the proceedings and the maintenance of order. This will constitute my main line of action during our debates. As reflected in Decision 11-8, we adopted in 2016, the spirit of consensus is the one that should prevail in our debate. I believe it would also be in order to remind ourselves that the draft decision proposed to us have been prepared by the evaluation body, a consultative body created to assist us in our examination of nominations, because we know that we do not have the time to go thoroughly through each nomination file. We elect its members, we then propose its candidates. Therefore, our debates and our decisions-making process shall demonstrate respect towards the expertise and diligent work of the evaluation body. In conformity with the decision made last year and in spirit of consensus that prevails in the work of UNESCO's governing bodies, when amendments are put forward, I will seek to establish consensus through appreciating both supporting arguments and objection to those amendments under consideration. To this end, when an amendment is proposed, I will first determine whether it receives an active relative support from the committee. This means that I will be looking for the expression of support from at least 1/3 of the committee members. If I deem it necessary, for instance, in the case of an objection by a committee member to an amendment, I would then seek the active, broad support from the majority of committee members. This aspect of the conduct of our debate is of prime importance to me. In this regard, allow me to emphasize that our decision-making process has an impact on the credibility of not only the work of this committee, but also by inference of the Convention as a whole. It is therefore our duty and our responsibility as members of the committee to keep these considerations in mind throughout our debates. Do we have any comment or questions regarding the procedure for the proposed examination of the files? I see none. Dear colleague, I wish now to recall several other important points about the procedure of our debates, which are the working method adopted by the committee that I can kindly ask you to respect. During the general debates, priority is given to members of the committee, but I will also give the floor to state parties, non-members of the committee, and other observers if time allows. During the debates on draft decision concerning specific nominations, proposals, and requests, participation in the debate is limited to committee members. Let me also recall Rule 22.4 of the Rules of Procedure. Submitting states whether or not a member of the committee shall not speak to advocate the inclusion of the file, but only to provide information in reply to questions raised by committee members, if any. I remind members and observers that there are a large number of people following our work back home through audiocast and videocast or through the news media. And it is therefore important for us to keep as closely as possible to our schedule. Do you have any question on the procedure for the debates or the documents? I see none. I would like now to give the floor to the rapporteur of the evaluation body, Ms. Kuminikova.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you, on behalf of the evaluation body, its final report, which consists of 5 parts. Can we see the presentation? Not yet. Right. Firstly, it is the document ITH 1813-10, the report of the evaluation body on its work in 2018. Other 4 documents related to each of the international mechanisms of the Convention, the representative list, the urgent safeguarding list, the register of good safeguarding practices and international assistance, are included in documents numbers 10A, 10B, 10C and 10D, and they will be presented to you by the chairman of the evaluation body, Mr. John O'Mara. Next slide, please. In this cycle, 50 files have been treated and have been submitted to the evaluation body for its recommendation, including 6 multinational nominations. 1 file concerns an inscription on an extended basis. 8 files have been resubmitted after being referred or not inscribed in a previous cycle. The largest proportion, 80%, concerns nominations to the representative list, 14% nominations to the urgent safeguarding list, 4%, that is 2 files, are proposals to the register of good safeguarding practices, and a single international assistance request was submitted for this cycle. Out of the 50 files examined by the evaluation body, a total of 35 files are recommended for inscription, selection or approval. 12 files are recommended for referral and 3 files are not recommended for inscription, selection or approval, as you can see in the graph. The 12 members of the evaluation body met 3 times in March, June and September. Each member studied every file, which gave us a complete overview and allowed us to treat all files consistently. Because only 1/4 of members is replaced each year, evaluation body members also benefited from the experience gained in previous cycles, often recalling body's former recommendations and past decisions of the committee. After submitting their individual assessments online, members of evaluation body met in June to discuss all files together. The common evaluation of each file usually started with a diversity of opinions, but through intensive debates, all 12 members of the body had to reach a consensus, which is presented to the committee in this report. The composition of the body respects equitable geographic distribution, allowing its debates to benefit from a wide range of expertise. Although the report was drafted by the rapporteur, all members of the body participated in its elaboration, and the documents submitted are results of an intensive collaborative process and common work. The evaluation body strictly adhered to the principle of exclusively evaluating the information and facts contained in the files that were submitted in a timely manner and their compliance with the criteria, not making any assumptions about information that the state party had not explicitly articulated. When the information needed to assess whether or not the file met a certain criterion was lacking, the body recommended the referral option. Having in mind that referring a file often causes disappointment on the part of the state party and particularly among the communities concerned, the body wishes to reiterate that the referral option is not a negative assessment of a file. It rather allows the state party to revisit the file and improve its quality so as to fully reflect the principles of the Convention, serve the purposes of the lists or the register, and cast good light on the work of the state parties and the committee. In 2017, the evaluation body used a dual system of draft decisions with 2 options on an exceptional basis for criterion U5 and R5. This was applied in cases where a nomination would be recommended for a referral only because factual information related to the inclusion of the element in an inventory was lacking. This year, for the first time, the body evaluated nomination files benefiting from the new ICH 01 and ICH 02 nomination forms, in which Section 5 has been broken down into several subsections. It noted substantial improvements in the way submitting states provided information compared with previous cycles. However, some files still lacked mandatory information, particularly concerning periodicity and modality of inventory updating. If most of the information required and an inventory extract were provided, the body evaluated criterion U5R5 positively, despite the fact that certain aforementioned information was missing. Whenever it applied this approach in the draft decision, the body suggested that the committee requests that the state party clearly provides the information concerned in its periodic report. As a result of this approach, no nomination was recommended for a referral on the basis of criterion U5 or R5 alone in this cycle. This is why the evaluation body did not consider it to be necessary in this cycle to use a dual system of draft decisions with two options. In this cycle, the evaluation body noted again that some states parties found it particularly challenging to answer the questions under criterion R2, and that the purpose of this criterion is still not clear even to experienced submitting states. When trying to identify the reasons, the body came to a conclusion that while under all other criteria the state party is asked to justify the inscription of an element from the community perspective and in specific terms, in R2 an external and abstracted point of view is expected. Instead of explaining how the inscription can promote the intangible cultural heritage in general and raise awareness of ICH outside the community of its practitioners, large proportion of nomination files tend to address the impact of the inscription on the element itself and within its community. The body devoted a lengthy discussion to this issue and acknowledged that the criterion is directly related to the purpose of the representative list and therefore it is highly relevant and important. For these reasons, the body welcomes and encourages the reflection on the nature of the lists and the relevance of the criteria for each of them, particularly in relation to criterion R2. Now let us look at selected cross-cutting issues which have been reappearing most often or which have raised particularly serious discussions among body members. In civil cases, the states parties attempted to claim or justify ownership of an element, mostly in sections corresponding to criteria R1, U1 or R2. The body also noted that even the titles of nominated elements sometimes imply claims of ownership. In such cases, the Secretariat was asked to propose a modification of a title to the submitting country, not to inadvertently provoke sentiments contrary to the Convention's principle of mutual respect and international cooperation. To be specific, for instance, where formulating a title, it is generally advisable to identify elements as being practiced in a country rather than being of a country. As in previous cycles, some nominations showed poor language quality, with many typographical errors and inconsistencies. Considering that the quality of writing does affect the understanding of the element by the evaluation body and the committee, and since nomination files are made public and serve to promote the convention, it is important that the states parties ensure clear and coherent written expression in the files and pay particular attention to their correct translations. States parties are also repeatedly reminded not to use expressions implying the immutability, excellence, or uniqueness of elements. Those most frequently employed include expressions like authenticity, unique, original, or extraordinary. Such expressions may imply externally imposed hierarchy of elements, while the Convention encourages us to value all expressions equally. That is why they should be avoided. In civil cases this year, states parties also proposed safeguarding measures aimed at protecting authenticity of an element or ensuring that the element will be conserved and will not change in the future. Such approach is contrary to the definition of intangible cultural heritage and goals of the Convention, which emphasizes living, dynamic, and ever-changing nature of ICH, recreating to the needs and preferences of the practitioners. The evaluation body encountered difficulties with nominations of generally well-known elements referring to different concepts which were not known to the body members and which were not explained in the file. The description of an element should be written in such way that even someone who has no prior knowledge of it would understand its nature. Due to the word limit, the states parties also tend to use acronyms, which is understandable. However, they should always first clarify what these stand for and not expect that the reader will be automatically familiar with them. The evaluation body was pleased to examine 6 multinational nominations in the 2018 cycle. At the same time, it felt that the potential for multinational files is still largely untapped and therefore wishes to encourage state parties to do their utmost in considering the submission of multinational nominations in the future. Yesterday, both Koreas set a very good example of this practice. Preparing a joint nomination always requires a lot of coordination and harmonizing different priorities and individual needs of each country. Sometimes these efforts are very successful and demonstrate very well the principles of international cooperation. However, sometimes collaboration between the submitting states seems rather formal and does not reflect upstream joint efforts. The body also noted that in some cases the amount and quality of information from each country involved in a multinational nomination process differ, and that deficiencies in one country's contribution can hinder the entire nomination and cause disappointment among all the other countries and communities. The states parties should therefore strive to submit balanced files. With so many communities at stake, it can be very difficult to ensure their active and wide involvement in the multinational collaborative nomination process. Nevertheless, the involvement of communities, particularly in the planning and implementation of the safeguarding measures, must be, in these cases, treated with even greater care and attention. Evaluation body debated several thematic issues, out of which I will mention only the most discussed ones. The body noticed an increasing number of nominations related to sports and discussed the boundary between traditional sports and games and their professional forms. The body was particularly concerned when a state party focused on explaining their rules and system of organization instead of concentrating on their value as cultural practices and on the community roles. As community-based practices with a clear cultural meaning, constantly recreated and transmitted across generations, traditional sports and games can be considered as expressions of intangible cultural heritage. However, when they become strongly professionalized, it can undermine their status as ICH. The evaluation body was pleased to see that the states parties are aware of close linkages between intangible cultural heritage and its tangible environment, and they decide to safeguard living traditions complementarily with the protection of World Heritage sites associated with them. Unfortunately, in some cases, the safeguarding plans prioritized protection of tangible heritage before the intangible and did not take into consideration that the 2003 Convention applies a different approach and different criteria from the 1972 World Heritage Convention. During the evaluation process, several serious issues linked to the commercialization of intangible cultural heritage arose, mostly in relation to its promotion. The evaluation body expressed concerns when the promotion of tourism and commercialization were considered as key objectives of the safeguarding plans. Although sustainable tourism can be an important source of income for the custodians, viewing the inscription of an element as a tool for attracting more tourists or for creating a leisure park demonstrates a lack of understanding of the principles of the Convention and of the objective of its lists. If negative impacts following an inscription are foreseen, a monitoring mechanism should be designed that will allow the community to take appropriate measures when excessive numbers of tourists start negatively influencing the practice. It is encouraging that several nominations did include proposals of such monitoring mechanisms. Some elements, particularly knowledge and skills associated with traditional crafts can have a strong commercial aspect, which is generally not unusual or necessarily undesirable when the commercialization of crafts provides their practitioners with permanent source of income and hence creates sustainability. However, nominations should not concentrate primarily on the commercial aspects of elements, particularly in terms of safeguarding measures. Rather, they should highlight their social and cultural roles and features. The inscription should also not be seen as an excellence label granted by the UNESCO, which would help to promote the products. Again, in several cases, the purposes of the 2003 Convention seem to be confused with other standard-setting instruments of UNESCO in field of culture, particularly in terms of economic significance of nominated elements. Another major and recurrent issue has been the community involvement and consent. First and foremost, the communities and practitioners identified in each section of the nomination file should be coherent, which means that the communities identified in section C should also be those involved in safeguarding and those expressing consent with the inscription. The states parties should also bear in mind that criteria U3R3 and U4R4 both expect detailed description of community participation, however, each of them in different context and from a different perspective. Still, they are both equally important. As far as criterion U3R3 and community-based safeguarding are concerned, the communities and practitioners are expected to be the driving forces of safeguarding measures, not mere beneficiaries of top-down safeguarding. The evaluation body also encountered situations in which community participation under criterion U4R4 was declared but not demonstrated in the file. Despite long lists of workshops and meetings between stakeholders, the body was not able to identify the nature of these meetings and what kinds of roles the practitioners actually played in the nomination process. This raised doubts concerning the level of awareness among the communities of practitioners about the very purpose of the nomination, the meaning of the inscription, and particularly the purpose of their free, prior, and informed consent. Many different issues arose in relation to the consent letters, their forms and content. The operational directives require that an element is to be nominated following the widest possible participation of the community, group, or, if applicable, individuals concerned. As there is no particular number of expressions of consent prescribed, the evaluation body studied their representativeness, information value, and the very process of acquiring them. While diverse expressions of community consent, including audiovisual materials, are always welcomed, standardized letters, petitions, or signature sheets sometimes could not be considered as expressions of informed consent because they did not demonstrate that the signatories were fully aware of what they were actually signing. In the 2018 cycle, the body examined several forms of consent emanating from children, and hence requested the position of UNESCO's Office for International Standards and Legal Affairs on the involvement of children. Based on its position and recalling Decision 8.8, paragraph 16, the body accepted consent of minors as a form of attestation suited to the situation of the communities concerned and concluded that in such cases, information and the context in which such consent was gathered is important and needed. In several cases, there was a discrepancy between the content of consent letters provided in original languages and their English or French translations. Some translations referred to the World Heritage List, and some mention other lists under the 2003 Convention than the one to which the nomination actually related, or inaccurate expressions like inscription at UNESCO, etc. The evaluation body reminds states parties that they are responsible for the accuracy and quality of their translations and that incorrect references may not be considered as valid since they raise doubts about the informed nature of the consent. In the 2018 cycle, under criterion U5, R5, inventories were presented in a diversity of formats. Some of them took forms of books, lists of resources, sample books, and so on. Although there are no hard and fast rules as how to structure an inventory, inventories always need to include certain information to meet the requirements of Articles 11 and 12 of the Convention, particularly name and description of an element, identification of the practitioners who are associated with it, its geographical scope, current social and cultural functions, and viability and modes of transmission. Regarding this issue, the Secretariat drew bodies' attention to the guidance note on inventorying intangible cultural heritage, which was released this spring and is available on the website of the Convention. It can be used as an aid in the process of designing and developing inventories at the national and local levels. So these were the most critical points of the 2018 Evaluation Body Report. For the other issues, the document 13.10 can be consulted. And on behalf of the Evaluation Body, I would like to thank you for entrusting us with this task.
Thank you, Ms. Kuminikova, for your presentation, which was very elaborate and where you raise very important issues which should inform the debate of the committee. I now open the list of speakers for questions on the report of the evaluation body. Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Azerbaijan would like to congratulate the evaluation body for its hard work and for the quality of its report. We know that the report has raised a number of very important issues and challenges. The result of this work will potentially guide us, the committee, and the state parties for the years to come, I believe. Our delegation has noted that just like in previous years, some states have faced serious challenges in describing criterion R2. And we are pleased to hear that this issue has been integrated into the agenda of the meeting of experts and the open-ended Intergovernmental Working Group on criteria, purposes and nature of the list. We know that the observation by the evaluation body that current cycle of evaluation brought up a series of cases where more detailed information on community representation could have been beneficial for the nominations. It is important to explain the way community members have been chosen to represent the entire communities within the framework of nomination process and to give free, prior and informed consent. It is essential to understand who such representatives are and how they derive their legitimacy to speak on behalf of the communities or groups. This has been the reason of referrals under the criterion 3 and 4 in the cases of nominations to both representative and urgent safeguarding lists for the current cycle. We believe this could potentially be avoided in the future cycles by integrating a specific question in the nomination forms where states would be asked to explain how certain community members have been chosen to represent the entire communities, and we have proposed a draft amendment to this to the decision in this regard. Regarding the examination of criteria R3 in the case of representative list, our delegation noticed that very often the draft decisions refer to safeguarding plans, while criterion R3 requires measures to be described as it stands in the nomination form and the paragraph 2 of the operational directives. We believe it is important to keep the distinction between the terms measures and a plan for safeguarding, since the nature of criteria in both lists are different, and I would like to propose also draft amendment to the decision on this issue. Finally, our delegation noted that as compared to the previous cycle, this year the report of the evaluation body did not present options with regard to the criteria R5. And we consider that similar approach could have still been applied in cases of number of nominations presented this year, evaluated this year, even if some other criteria within the same files had issues that need clarification. So with this in mind, we will come back to these proposals that we tabled and submitted to the Secretariat for further explanations. I thank you.
Thank you, Azerbaijan. Senegal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais, au nom de la délégation, féliciter très chaleureusement l'organe pour le travail qui vient de nous être présenté. Le rapport est très détaillé et il y a beaucoup de propositions dans le sens de rétablir, ou en tout cas dans le sens de travailler dans la communication entre les États soumissionnaires et l'organe. C'est une question certainement qui sera prise en compte dans le groupe de travail, et d'autant plus que depuis 2 ans on en parle, mais je pense que c'est une question qui est souvent revenue. Comme vient de le dire également l'honorable délégué de l'Azerbaïdjan, le critère R2 pose toujours problème, effectivement, et il faut qu'on travaille peut-être dans le sens d'une meilleure compréhension de ce critère pour qu'il soit mieux justifié, qu'il soit mieux argumenté dans le cadre des dossiers d'inscription. Je voudrais surtout insister, Monsieur le Président, sur une question qui a été abordée, les noms des éléments. Si vous prenez le cas de l'Afrique, où les frontières sont artificielles, ou dans un village, une partie du village peut être dans un pays anglophone à cause de la colonisation, et une autre partie du village être dans une autre république. Ils ont la même culture, le même rite, qui s'appelle de la même manière, c'est la même langue. Il sera difficile si ces deux. Ce qu'il faut encourager, c'est une inscription, si vous voulez, conjointe, comme ça a été le cas au Sénégal, sur le Kankourang, ou la Gambie, qui est à l'intérieur du Sénégal, qui est une république, si vous voulez, autonome, et le Sénégal, qui est notre république, ont une continuité culturelle qui ne connaît pas les frontières. Et je pense que cela va arriver dans presque la plupart des États de l'Afrique, surtout en ce qui concerne l'Afrique de l'Ouest, où vraiment les continuités culturelles sont telles que ces éléments que nous avons, ces expressions culturelles, ont le même nom, dans la même langue, dans les mêmes groupes ethniques. Et cela, il faut simplement encourager des inscriptions multinationales, mais si un pays décide de le faire, le Niger a déjà inscrit la parenté à plaisanterie, c'est bien, mais d'autres pays ont le même élément chez eux. Si c'était dans d'autres conventions, on va parler d'extension. Mais dans notre convention, il ne s'agit pas d'extension, mais il s'agit peut-être d'encourager des inscriptions multinationales. Je pense que c'est peut-être cela qu'il faut relever, mais quelquefois on ne peut pas changer le nom. Le nom est le même dans ces différentes communautés. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Merci, le Sénégal. Maintenant, j'invite la Colombie.
Gracias, presidente. Colombia quiere, pues primero que todo, felicitar al órgano evaluador por su enorme labor y su detallado reporte, pero sobre todo por llamar la atención sobre la función social del patrimonio inmaterial, por encima de sus posibles dimensiones comerciales que muchas veces benefician a las comunidades, pero no es la única manera de beneficiar a las comunidades. Y también quisiéramos celebrar y llamar la atención al comité sobre algo que remarca el órgano evaluador, y es la necesidad de incluir la perspectiva de género y de la sostenibilidad ambiental cuando hablamos de las manifestaciones del patrimonio inmaterial y su salvaguardia. Consideramos que estos elementos, más otro elemento que incluye el órgano evaluador y del cual hablábamos como país en la reunión que tuvimos en Francia en junio, y es la necesidad de hacer del patrimonio inmaterial y el manejo y la administración de las manifestaciones de manera más intersectorial, llevando el patrimonio inmaterial a otro nivel en el que no se quede solamente en las manifestaciones mismas, sino también se relacione con otros elementos del desarrollo social y político de las comunidades, pues consideramos que está en estos tres elementos la posibilidad de generar mecanismos de salvaguardia sostenibles que permitan que el PCI realmente perdure en las comunidades y se pueda recrear también dependiendo de los cambios que las comunidades consideren que deben efectuar sobre su propio patrimonio inmaterial. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Colombia. May I invite Philippine to share with us their views?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We thank the evaluation body for its report and hard work. We appreciate the important issues identified in the report. Our delegation is consistently called for dialogue between the evaluation body and nominating states parties, not because we do not support or value the work of the evaluation body, or because we want to change the manner in which it works or make it a mirror of world heritage. It is because of all the problems and challenges we have observed the past 3 years while serving on the committee. We see that there truly is a problem with R2. Almost all state parties receiving referrals have difficulties with R2. We also note with concern that state parties which previously received referrals for nominations are coming back with improved files, but still receiving referrals over technical issues or questions or misperceptions that could easily be addressed through a dialogue or the provision of minor clarifications. Without the opportunity for a dialogue during the evaluation process, it is the committee which becomes the platform for dialogue. But at this late stage, it is difficult to contain the political process of lobbying and the high expectations of communities and stakeholders concerned. It would be much better to upstream the dialogue and put it in an expert-driven context. This would do much to enhance the trust and confidence in the system and raise the understanding of the convention among states parties and communities concerned in a constructive and practical way. Many times, it only takes a minor explanation to clarify an issue. The report clearly indicates the utility of dialogue in its paragraph 28 concerning the adjustment of the titles of some elements. Hence, we believe that the working methods of the evaluation body should be reviewed and strengthened with a view to allowing for opportunity for a limited dialogue with nominating state parties concerned. This would enhance credibility in the system and its inclusiveness. We are willing to continue working with the evaluation body and the Secretariat to define the most appropriate parameters and the procedure, noting that they would have also emphasized that no one is against dialogue. Finally, we just have an amendment to the decision tracking the language of the General Assembly's sentiments on the issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Philippine, for your comments. And now I'll invite Poland.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to express our appreciation for a report and the work done by the evaluation body. We understand and underline the importance of the reflections on the nominations process. We share the view, the opinion expressed by the Philippines about the strong necessity of dialogue between states presenting the nominations and the evaluation body. We agree also that there is a need to undertake a broader reflection on challenges encountered by the evaluation body, in particular in evaluating criterion R2. We have reflected on this issue and we have some ideas that we are going to share with you in the near future. But in this regard, we would like to ask for the opinion of the evaluation body about the possible solutions of this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now give the floor to Cyprus?
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Pour ne pas me répéter, je voulais simplement appuyer tout ce qu'elle a dit l'ambassadrice de Philippines, que nous sommes d'accord pour le dialogue entre les États parties et l'organe d'évaluation, même si on respecte son travail. Si on a un dialogue, on peut éviter certains problèmes techniques pour l'examen d'un dossier. Et ce serait bien, en fait, on peut le voir après, peut-être dans la décision, que quand on va faire les deux réunions, la réunion des experts et la réunion du groupe de travail, de parler aussi du dialogue entre les États parties et l'organe d'évaluation. Merci.
Thank you, Cyprus. Kazakhstan.
Thank you, Chairman. Kazakhstan would like to commend the work of the evaluation body and the very clear presentation we heard today. We also welcome intentions to address concerns related to the application of R2 criterion in reviewing applications submitted by state parties, as well as share some concerns expressed by preceding speakers relating to a dialogue between state parties and the evaluation body. Thank you.
Thank you, Kazakhstan. Austria.
Thank you, Chair. We congratulate the accredited NGOs and experts that had worked on the files for the coherence of their work and the detailed and insightful report, which shows that the evaluation of files remains in process. It keeps evolving over time and with experience, and we also noticed this on the national level. With great pleasure, actually, we took note of the positive effects of the revised form for Section 5. And as my colleagues already mentioned, we see the criterion 2 is still challenging. So it will be discussed by the working group, but we might want to define a set of indicators that would allow for measuring the impact of inscription. So I'm referring here to the overall results framework and indicator 15 on the role of the ICH and its safeguarding in society, for example, which could be a starting point in this matter. And as the delegation of Poland, I would also like to invite the evaluation body to elaborate on their ideas regarding this criterion. We also noted the evaluation body's comments on files related to crafts under paragraph 39. And looking at the submitted files, it becomes clear that a lack of visibility or low interest in traditional craftsmanship often poses a threat to the viability of the element. Considering that traditional craftsmanship can make a profound contribution to several goals of the 2030 agenda, among others SDG 8 and 12, we hope that states parties will continue recognizing, promoting and enhancing ICH elements that concern the skills and knowledge associated with traditional craftsmanship. Unfortunately, there have only been 2 proposals for the Register of Good Safeguarding Practice this cycle, and as this is a very valuable and useful register, not only as a source of inscription for others, but also source of inspiration, sorry, for others, but also for the communities, groups and individuals, because they consciously reflect on the nature of their successful safeguarding measures. This process is also highly beneficial, so it strengthens community ties and further contributes to the safeguarding of the element. So to sum up, I wish to thank the evaluation body for its specific recommendation to states parties, and they also clearly identify those parts of the file that could be revisited and improved. So your work for the convention is highly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Guatemala. May I now invite a representative from Cuba?
Gracias, señor presidente. Nuestra delegación también desea agradecer por el informe presentado. Vemos con interés y con satisfacción que ha habido un diálogo que ha mejorado ese proceso de entendimiento entre los estados partes y el órgano de evaluación. Vemos con satisfacción que el 67% de las nominaciones presentadas fueron recomendadas favorablemente y que se han tenido en cuenta, aunque todavía habrán muchas cosas que ir perfeccionando y mejorando en este proceso en que aprendemos todos, una mejor relación y un mejor diálogo con los Estados miembros. Creo que los grupos de trabajo que están en curso a partir ahora del financiamiento que también ofrece Japón mejorará nuestros métodos de trabajo, nuestros procedimientos para lograr el objetivo final, que es la protección y salvaguardia del patrimonio inmaterial. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I miss Guatemala, please. Sorry, Guatemala. You have now the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Sin duda queremos felicitar al órgano evaluador. Sabemos que han hecho un buen trabajo. Sin embargo, pues no estaría de más hacer un aporte como Guatemala como país, ¿verdad? Considera que en una convención como la del 2003, que promueve el diálogo como forma de entendimiento entre los diferentes actores involucrados en la salvaguardia del patrimonio cultural inmaterial, es fundamental que los países se expresen y puedan ser escuchados. Es cierto que debemos respetar el criterio del órgano de evaluación, pero también debemos hacer todo lo posible para promover el diálogo entre los estados partes de la convención, y esto pasa por permitir expresarse a los estados que han propuesto alguna nominación y que necesitan hacer algún tipo de aclaración en relación a estas. Hace 2 años Guatemala manifestó que era necesario un diálogo entre el órgano de evaluación y los estados que proponen expedientes. Luego de varias discusiones se determinó que no era el momento para instaurarlo, pues no se encontraron las condiciones necesarias para poder implementarlo. No podemos negar que en muchos de los estados parte de la convención existe la necesidad de fortalecer capacidades, incluso para la elaboración de expedientes de nominación. En muchas ocasiones los expertos de los países siguen encontrando dificultades para interpretar de la mejor manera los requerimientos para registrar y dar a conocer el vasto patrimonio con que contamos en nuestros países. Ejemplo de ello es la constante presentada en la evaluación de ciertos criterios, en particular el R2, que incluso la misma Secretaría ha reconocido existe algún tipo de dificultad para ser entendido. Es importante destacar en ese sentido que la mayoría de expedientes de nominación que el órgano de evaluación consideró no reunían todos los criterios, tienen que ver con el criterio R2. Por otro lado, creemos que no es una cuestión que tenga que ver el número de criterios que el órgano de evaluación considera no satisfechos, sino más bien la particularidad de cada expediente y el contenido plasmado en él. Prueba de ello es que no existe ninguna regla escrita al respecto. Bajo este principio pensamos que los casos deben analizarse uno por uno, sin imponer una regla que penalice a los países, no permitiéndoles expresarse. Por tanto, estimamos que aún quedan varios puntos que debemos resolver en relación al proceso de evaluación de los expedientes de nominación, y creemos firmemente que a falta de un diálogo que permita replantear o reformular el contenido del expediente, debemos mostrar cierta flexibilidad al momento de juzgar las nominaciones de países miembros de la Convención. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Guatemala. We are already 5:30, and I'll take 2 observations from Japan and Palestine, and then we'll close our session for today. Japan, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I try to be very brief. And I appreciate the very good briefing by evaluation body about current status of the system of the evaluation. And also I listened very carefully to the comment by our colleagues from each delegation with interest and very carefully. And I appreciate all those comments and the statement and briefing because they clearly reflect the need of reflection of the intangible cultural heritage system. And not only the criteria as stipulated in the convention itself, of course, criteria 2 should be discussed, but at the same time, I think, we should also discuss about the mechanism and the procedures which has been established ever since the adoption of the convention. And I just suggested in my yesterday's statement, it's really bad to refer to the information sources outside the file. But the concept of uniqueness and originality really contradict the definition of ICH. I think these points should be also, very seriously addressed, and that's why real reflection, fundamental philosophical the reflection is very important at this juncture. And this is the reason why we proposed and we are ready to sponsor the very important process, and it's a great honor for us to do it. Thank you very much.
Let me once again reiterate our thanks to Japan for the support provided to the convention. And now let me give the floor to Palestine, please.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. فقد اكتشفت للتو أن اليوم الترجمة العربية موجودة وبشكل جيد. اسمحوا لي أولا أن أشكر الهيئة التقييمية لعملها ولتقريرها الواضح والمفصل. وكي لا أطيل عليكم أنا أشارك تقريبا كل المداخلات التي ذكرت والتي شددت على أهمية الحوار، والتي أيضا شددت على أن هناك مشكلة فيما يخص أو عدم وضوح فيما يخص المعيار الثاني. وفي الواقع هذا يقودنا إلى الجدول الزمني الذي تكلمنا عنه بالأمس ابتداء باجتماع الخبراء في اليابان. وبهذا الصدد أود أن أشكر أيضا أكرر شكري لليابان لدعمهم لهذه الاتفاقية. ولذلك أود أن أسأل سؤالا بسيط جدا. Et là je vais le parler en français pour que ce soit plus direct et plus clair. À vrai dire, maintenant on a vu, tout le monde est d'accord, R2 pose un problème. Et le dialogue ne sera pas pour la prochaine session. Alors d'ici la prochaine session, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire avec R2? Je comprends bien qu'il est difficile d'opter pour dual option comme on l'a fait la dernière fois pour le R5. Mais peut-être on peut demander, et puis ça on va voir avec les membres du comité, que d'abord bien sûr les experts vont examiner cette question, et puis seulement ça va arriver en septembre prochain, c'est-à-dire dans un an à peu près, ou un peu moins. Mais d'ici là, peut-être un groupe de travail peut être chargé uniquement d'examiner une possibilité, un moyen avec le concours de l'Evaluation Body pour trouver une solution pour le R2. Comme les collègues l'ont mentionné, on voit aujourd'hui, enfin cette session, on voit que tous les dossiers qui sont recommandés pour referral, ils ont un problème avec R2. Donc le critère vraiment pose un problème. Il n'y a pas de clarté dans ce critère qui est plus qu'un point. En fait, là-dedans, il y a plusieurs choses. Il y a la visibilité, il y a le awareness, il y a tout ça en même temps. Et puis le drafting, le texte dans les dossiers ne sont pas clairs non plus. Alors, moi, je pense qu'il faudrait conduire une réflexion d'ici la prochaine session pour trouver quelque chose de créatif, comme vous l'avez trouvé la dernière fois, le dual option. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci, Palestine. On termine avec une grande question. On ne sait pas quand on va avoir la réponse. Mais quand même, c'est bon de poser la question. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of today's session. Let me thank everybody and remind you that tomorrow morning the Bureau will meet at 9 a.m. in Kestrel Room on the first floor to continue with its work. The Vice Chairperson from Cyprus, Armenia, Guatemala, Philippines and Lebanon, as well as our rapporteur, please be there on time so that we can begin promptly. For the participants who have booked tours for today, I regret to inform that due to the prevailing weather conditions, these have been cancelled. I will now pass over the floor to the Secretary for some other practical announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I would just I would also like to remind the states who wish to hold performances or present audio-visual material after the examination of their nomination files to please inform the Secretariat as soon as possible in order to facilitate its preparation. Thank you.
With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I declare today's session closed. Thank you.